Hello everyone, this is Katrina Chen. 我是 Katrina Chen， 卑诗省负责儿童照护的省务厅长，跟 Burnaby Lohi 的省议员。今天非常高兴能够在此庆祝我们加拿大的青少年国际演讲比赛顺利成功，同时也要感谢我们所有的主办单位跟参赛者，有你们辛苦的努力，我们卑诗省才能够有这么多元文化跟丰富的一个社会。Thank you so much for all of your contributions, and I would like to bring greetings on behalf of our provincial government, our Premier John Horgan, to wish you a very successful contest. 也祝福大家在这个疫情的当中呢，能够多保持健康平安。Thank you and see you later.
本节目由艺空联盟拍卖平台独家赞助播出。下载 YKLM Auction App， 浏览更多有趣好玩的视频内容，更有机会赢得更多高端竞拍商家折扣。艺空联盟让拍卖成就美好生活。
Close your eyes and imagine. Imagine a world where your race, religion, or culture does not impact how you are treated by others in society. A world in which you are treated with respect because you are a human just like anyone else. A world in which there is equality, justice, and most importantly, love. Now open your eyes. Unfortunately, that world is non-existent. The world in which we live in is filled with racism, discrimination, and prejudice. And the underlying cause for all of this is hate. Hate is what blinds us from trying to see beneath each other's differences. Hate is what blocks us from trying to break out of rooted and fixed stereotypes. Hate is the reason why there are conflicts occurring around the world today. This needs to end. These walls of hatred need to be demolished, and bridges of unity and acceptance must be built in their place. But the question which remains is who? Who will create that change, and how? When it comes to making change, we tend to wait for someone else to come and make right what is wrong and unjust. But we need to stop waiting. We need to be the ones to create that change. And change starts when we ask ourselves one simple question, and that is, what is the slightest change that I can make in my day-to-day life that will have a positive impact on this world? Let me tell you that even the smallest of changes can have a big impact. And when we decide to make a small change in our everyday lives, we can and we will put an end to racism, discrimination, and prejudice, and make this world a better place for all. Now, if you're currently wondering where to start, let me tell you something that Mother Teresa once said. Peace begins with a smile. A smile is something which we consider to be so small, yet it holds so much power. It shows the other person, that they are appreciated for who they are, and creates a sense of harmony between people. If everyone in the world just learned to smile more often, wouldn't the world be such a better place? Another small step that must be taken towards eliminating hate in today's society is questioning the racist stereotypes which we have. Stereotypes are hurtful and can quickly become too rigid. They are what fuel discrimination towards a certain group of people. We need to break out of these stereotypes and have a more open and accepting mindset about those around us. If you look at some of the most horrific events in history, they happened because one group of people was not willing to accept the differences of another. And because of this, a vast number of cultural groups had to suffer in the past because no one was willing to change what was so wrongly thought of them. And yet, many groups of people still suffer today. Isn't that something to be ashamed of? To know that all these years we have made so little change. What's currently happening in the United States is an example of that. Jacob Blake and many other African Americans before him have been killed brutally because of their skin color. Isn't it disappointing to know that although we're all one human race, our differences hold us at different ranks? This is why it is important to unlearn the stereotypes which we have learned and to see people as they are. Additionally, we need to take a step out of our comfort zone, stand up, and speak out against what we believe is wrong. During the times of the American Civil Rights Movement, on March 8, 1965, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. made the memorable statement, "Our lives begin to end the day we become silent about things that matter." Today, it is not a choice of ours, but a responsibility to create a just and equal society for people today and for future generations to come. But if we stay silent, we will have failed at fulfilling this responsibility, and the world will continue to crumble from hatred. We must stand up in solidarity with those who are protesting against current injustices in their countries. But we must not be apathetic and turn a blind eye towards them. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was a man who had the same passion as I do, a passion to end racism and make equality a reality. 57 years ago, he delivered his iconic "I Have a Dream" speech to a large group of civil rights marchers gathered around Lincoln Memorial in Washington, D.C. In his speech, he mentioned, "I have a dream that one day my 4 children will live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character." Today, as I stand here, I want to expand the dream of Dr. King and end this speech by saying that I also have a dream. I have a dream that one day the darkness brought along with hate will be eliminated, and that love shall take its place and illuminate the globe. I have a dream that one day no one shall be subject to racism. Everyone shall feel content and happy because their differences are warmly welcomed. I have a dream that one day we, the people, will stand together, united to support one another. No one shall experience pain or suffering on their own, because when they do, the whole community will have their back. I have a dream, and this dream can only come true when we promise to make a small, positive change in our everyday lives, because small changes do have a big impact. We have the power to do great things, so let us use this power to steer the world in the right direction. Thank you.
Growing up, my mom would always tell me to never turn on the light in the back of the car, the one right above my head in the back seat, where if I reached just high enough, I could turn it on with a flick of a switch. I never really knew why, just that I shouldn't. I was 8 years old when, after picking me up from dance class late at night, my mom told me that I was no longer allowed to have a sleepover at my friend Emma's house. I was devastated, and in that moment, I wanted my mom to know that she had crushed my happiness. So I decided to turn on that light. But instead of being met with my mom's harsh words telling me to turn the light off, my mom lost sight of the road from the glare in the windshield, speeding us into oncoming traffic. She slammed on the gas as my head went forward as we hit the car in front of us. In that moment, I felt like I wanted to melt into my seat and cry as I apologized over and over to my mom. I could tell that she was upset by my actions, but instead of yelling at me or getting mad, she turned to me and said, 星星之火可以燎原, meaning a single spark can start a wildfire. She told me to be careful of my actions because no matter how small they feel, they can have a huge impact on others. This proverb has always stuck with me. If I had only changed my actions a little bit, being a little less petty and had a bit more sympathy, my mom wouldn't feel a lasting sense of fear every time she walks into that car. A small change with a big impact. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Angela, and that's what I'm here to talk to you about today. Small changes with big impacts. Whether that be a change that takes a stand against injustice, or in my case, changing the settings of a car to be fraught with inevitable danger. Our actions do not stop at us. In that car, my flick of a switch was the direct cause of a chain reaction. The brighter the light in the car was, the more blinding the windshield, and the harder it was for my mom to focus. Of course, this was never my intention. But regardless of our intentions, the impact we create can grow past our own control. For me, this change may have been negative, but so many amazing people have used their relatively small power to create immense good. I'm going to explore this through the stories of individuals whose small changes have rippled outwards to leave lasting impacts on the world. The first story begins in the year 1946 in the small Canadian town of New Glasgow, Nova Scotia. A 32-year-old woman walks down the street on a dreary November day, headed to the theaters. As she enters, she is told by the teller that she cannot sit in the front row. You see, this woman was Viola Desmond, a Black woman who lived in a segregated Canada. A Canada in which people who looked like her were denied basic rights on a daily basis. But when Viola was pushed away from the front row and told it was for whites only, she refused to sit in the back of the theater and accept yet another manifestation of the same systemic racism that had treated her as subhuman every day of her life. Rather, she made a small change. In an act of defiance, she rose up from her seat and switched to the front row. One small moment, one tiny action of changing a seat, defied centuries of oppression. Soon, Viola Desmond's seemingly trifling change empowered a lawsuit which uncovered a plethora of systemic issues which plagued Canadian society. Today, she has finally been given the recognition she ought to have had in her lifetime. Quite fittingly, her image replaced that of John MacDonald on the Canadian $10 bill. A Black woman who stood against oppression replaced a man who showed blatant racism and was even willing to starve Indigenous communities into submission. But most impactfully, the reach of Viola Desmond's actions have extended far beyond her immediate surroundings. While Viola Desmond sat, the protesters inspired by her courage today stand. One tiny change of switching a seat initiated a huge societal ripple and an even more colossal impact. But of course, the legacies of small changes with big impacts have transcended the boundaries of history, and they shine brighter than ever in the here and now. You see, we are in a time of immense global change, faced with unexpected challenges. When COVID struck, it was as though the disease pressed pause on the world. Everyone's plans were halted overnight. The whole world refocused. Most devastating was the overwhelming impact this had on our medical systems and the countless lives lost. Dr. Elaine Gauthier is one of the millions of doctors around the world facing these heartbreaking conditions. As a doctor on the front lines himself, he empathized with those forced to make impossible decisions on a daily basis in hotspots like Italy and New York. Decisions such as whose condition was bad enough to take up one of the few hospital beds left open, or which patients would receive ventilators, while others struggled to breathe and even died. In response to this, not only did Dr. Gauthier fight the virus by treating patients every day, but on top of that, he recognized the need to make a small change. He stayed late at work every night and remodeled the ventilator with the hopes of increasing its capacity until one day it worked. He managed to create a simple instructional video that was quickly shared all around the world, teaching doctors how to double their ventilator capacity by simply changing one small setting and adjusting one tube output. Now, adding an extra tube may not be a revolutionary change, but it certainly did revolutionize our ability to treat vulnerable patients and to save valuable lives. You may think that you're just one person in this huge world and that you can't possibly change it. But you would be wrong. Everyone, each and every single one of us is capable of changing the world bit by bit. Whether that be through sitting one seat away from what the rules tell us to, or by altering one minuscule gadget, the power lies in our hands to make small changes every day with the hopes that their impact can better the lives of others. One spark may cause a wildfire, a destructive force that magnifies harm. But a spark can also be the catalyst for change, a fire ignited within us all that burns with passion, one that leaves behind growth, change, and hope. Thank you.
.3 years of our lives are spent on sleeping. 10.5 are used on work. 9 years of our lives are on TV and social media. 4 years on eating and drinking, 2.5 years on shopping, and 1.3 years on commuting. That's approximately 55.8 years of your lives used up, so that one day you decide to scroll for just a bit longer on social media, or to snooze the button for just a little too much. Remember that you're using up the time that you can be living up to your dreams. Time is free, but it is priceless. Hi everyone, my name is Fiona Lee, and today I will tell you about how I learned that small changes creates big impacts. I have definitely learned this the hard way. When I was around 8, I absolutely hated doing homework. It was so tedious, just sitting there and for hours and hours with a pencil and pen, going through thick piles of textbooks and notebooks. As far as I can tell as an 8-year-old, my teacher's passion was assigning us homework. So of course, I procrastinated. I would daydream or play games or do whatever I wanted when I was supposed to be doing my homework. So then, half an hour would go by, and I think it's still early. And then an hour would go by, and I think, well, I still have some time. And then without realizing, I'd see that it's already late and I have to go to bed. So then I would rush to do all of my homework. On a peaceful Sunday, I was doing my homework. My mom came inside of my room and told me that I can go to the mall with my cousin to see a movie. So I was so excited because I haven't been able to see my cousin for a long time and I really wanted to see a movie. So I asked my mom, "Mom, do we leave as soon as I'm done?" And she said to me, "Of course, Fiona, but hurry up though, because your cousin's already there." So I look back to my desk and my smile immediately drops. All I see is a huge pile of homework waiting to devour me. So I took a deep breath and I tried to start again. Question after question, I did not lose focus at first. I was actually working well. But then I look up to the clock and I see that an hour has gone by. So I start to panic. I need to speed up. My mind was going at 100 miles an hour, but my hand couldn't keep up with that. So of course, I didn't know what to do. But then an idea popped up into my head. I can just tell my mom that I finished and do the rest later. I thought that was such a brilliant idea, and without thinking about any of the consequences, I did exactly that. So I had lots of fun at the mall, but when it was time to go home, my heart sank. It was already late, and I still had a lot of homework left. My mom would be furious if she knew. Tears started flowing out of my eyes. I started to cry, and my mom asked me what's wrong. So reluctantly, I told her. And she said to me, "Fiona, I know it might be hard resisting what seems fun before doing what's actually important. You have to know that learning and growth is number one in your life. You can watch a movie anytime, but you have to know that once time passes by, you can never go back and try to catch it again." But I said to her, "But Mom, homework is so tedious. I hate it so much." And she said to me, "Every single one of your opportunities is like a sail on your own sailship of life. These opportunities can be either your homework or your piano lessons. Just know that you have to embrace them and cherish them because they will ultimately give you impacts in the end." She also said to me that did I know that there were so many people that would rather have my opportunity to learn, and how many people that would want to love and have my opportunities to grow. These people don't have the chances and the privilege to learn as much as I do, and I'm fortunate enough to be able to have a good education in the status quo. So then, the car ride home was dead silent. My mom's words kept ringing in my ears. Just a few sentences that she said to me may seem insignificant, but it made a huge impact on me. From then on, I would try to cherish everything that I have, making small changes every single day. I try to be careful, whether if it's procrastinating or trying to do something else. But furthermore, I also learned to help others. Whether it's doing fundraisers or charity work or bake sales with my friends, I learned to help and support others with the opportunities and the privilege that I have. Just 2 years later, I was able to learn that lesson again. I've just immigrated to Canada, and everything was so new to me. The language, the people, and did I mention the language? So, although my English was okay, I still had a lot of language barriers ahead of me. Despite my English being the best out of my family, I was still reluctant to order my own meal at lunch or at restaurants. When in class, my classmates would raise their hands high up in the air, just fighting to be picked, and I would sulk into my spot, just waiting not to be seen. So then one day, I remember talking to my favorite teacher and telling her about why I feared public speaking and communicating so much. But what she said to me truly changed my perspective. She said, "Fiona, if you never try, you never know. If you don't even give something a chance, how will you know what happens once you do it? In order to conquer your fear, you have to reach out and try new things. Start from something small. For example, in next class, raise your hand. I promise it won't be as bad as you anticipate it to be." And I do so. One small change at a time. Going from raising my hand to ordering my own meal to volunteering at school. All of these changes made me who I am today. If you told 10-year-old me that 4 years later I will be out here public speaking, I would not believe you at all. This one simple action of raising my hand was able to change my life. Friends, at the end of the day, know that cherishing your time, your opportunities, and always knowing, trying your best and trying everything will guide you and support you in the end. Know that today education remains an inaccessible right for 759 million of children around the world. 780 million of people still don't have the right to access clean, drinkable water. Know your privilege and how fortunate you are to be able to live in a space where you don't have to fear for your life, that a bomb is going to go off, the next second, where you're able to eat and drink whenever and whatever you want, to be able to jog down the street and not fear for your life that a police officer is going to arrest you, to be able to learn and grow. In the sail ship of life, as my mom said, there will be sails of change that guide you and support you along the way. Each and every one of these sails are small changes that you decide to make on a daily basis. Whether if it's reaching out or using your time efficiently, they will all support you in the end. These sails of change will guide you and catch winds of luck and success for you and ultimately help you. In times of difficulty, even if there is a huge storm hitting your sail ship, they will help you. Even when a wave of difficulty crashes onto your ship, it will guide you. Even if a roaring thunder of fears try to intimidate you, it will guide you in the end. So know that whenever you make a small change, it will lead into big impacts, and they will always surprise you in the end. Thank you.
"24 hours a day, she struggles to breathe, endures convulsive moments, seizures, constantly trembles, and is diagnosed with a life-lasting mental and physical disorder. This is the fate of one-day-old newborn Emma Rangel. Rangel was diagnosed with neonatal abstinence syndrome, or also known as NAS, which is when a fetus inside the mother's womb is introduced to drugs and the infant is forced to take narcotics like morphine and methadone. Rangel's ability to speak, survive, and live is hindered forever. She is one of the 32,000 infants born with NAS each year. This is equal to one infant born with NAS every 15 minutes. Her story is one of too many, and a representation of what every child with NAS must endure. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Today, I'm going to be talking about the leading cause of infant immortality, neonatal abstinence syndrome. With small changes, we can make a big impact and save lives. Let's analyze the commonalities found in children with NAS and discuss solutions to minimize the rapidly increasing number of children diagnosed with NAS. A staggering 433% increase from just 10 years ago. I'll be focusing on the barriers that low-income parents have to face, as the majority of newborns with NAS are birthed from low-income women. Especially during the COVID-19 time, more individuals are reaching out to narcotics for emotional support. Among this pandemic, we cannot forget the vulnerable infants and individuals who are in need of our help. Through analyzing common causes of NAS and introducing 3 simple solutions, we can unite and change countless lives. So why is NAS so common today, especially among low-income families? In a study of 400 low-income adults, 22% were suicidal, 19% had an anxiety disorder, and thus 18% of low-income women abused substances. The main rationale for why over 380,000 newborns were exposed to drugs. There are 3 reasons behind this. First, pregnant and addicted women are afraid to reach out for help due to social stigma. Second, they're unable to access resources. And third, because of overprescription of narcotics. The first reason why NAS is so common among children from low-income parents is due to social stigma, as they're terrified and ashamed of their addiction, leading most women to only reach out for help after the baby is born. This causes such horrible reactions as, for example, this one person called Courtney Castonguay at age 18 was pressured by her boyfriend to use opioids, and she quickly became a regular user. But when she found out she was pregnant, she tried to self-medicate her addiction, but was terrified of asking for help and continued to use narcotics, even after she birthed her newborn. For 15 months, her infant uncontrollably shook, trembled, enduring constant seizures and a lifelong disability. The second reason why NAS is so common among children from low-income parents is because they aren't provided enough resources and must wait long durations to meet a doctor. Adults who live in underprivileged areas have the most difficulty accessing a doctor of any group in Canada. 43% of Canadians said that it was difficult to book one healthcare appointment, meaning that many pregnant women abusing substances don't know if they are medically determined pregnant. And by the time the pregnant woman met the doctor, it's too late, as the fetus in utero is already affected. The third reason why NAS is common among children from low-income parents is because of overprescription of narcotics post-surgery. A 2018 study by the U.S. National Safety Council found that 99% of doctors surveyed were prescribing highly addicted opioids for longer than the 3-day recommended period by the Center for Disease Control. Researchers found that in multiple clinics, doctors were motivated to overprescribe opioids as they earned more, leading 31,000 of 112,000 pregnant women to be prescribed opioid pain relievers. Physician Lisa Tang killed 13 adults in just 3 years due to overmedicating opioids. So just imagine the impact of a mother overdosing opioids while carrying a fetus. But how can we dissipate the growing problem of children with NAS? We can make small changes with a big impact. First, we need to change our societal assumptions of pregnant women addicted to narcotics. It's important for us as a community to remember that drug abuse is not a moral failure, rather a health issue where they need support. Pregnant women need to be comfortable asking for help to stop abusing drugs and birth an infant without NAS. Communities are where the stigma and fear of a drug mother begins, but it can also be the place where the stigma is erased. Second, we need to increase our support for infants diagnosed with NAS. Nonprofit organizations like Embrace teach parents how to care for their NAS-diagnosed infant. Volunteers help the infant cope for 12 months and act as a support these mothers once needed but didn't have. Although organizations like Embrace have been highly successful in helping children cope with their symptoms, these organizations aren't common enough for most mothers to have access. Third, we need to hold doctors accountable for overdosing narcotics as pain relievers. More than 250 million prescriptions of opioid painkillers are written in the US alone for 1 year. And over 1.7 million people have suffered from a substance use disorder caused by a doctor's prescription of an overdose of opioid pain relievers. Communities need to inform pregnant women and citizens of how to safely limit their intake of opioids and ensure they aren't overdosing. But how do we get the funds to create free educational parenting programs to support infants with NAS and ensure hospitals and clinics are funded? We can invest in prevention to save money and fund these long-term solutions. The government spends an average of $65,000 for every newborn diagnosed with NAS. And in the US, $563 million were spent on treatment of NAS newborns in 1 year. These millions of dollars could be used to fund thousands of programs to help opioid-addicted mothers, to fund clinics, help centers, and lessen the number of NAS-diagnosed infants. Among the COVID-19 pandemic, we cannot forget about the individuals consuming narcotics with newborns. It's through these small changes of shifting our mindset and supporting organizations like Embrace that we can save countless lives. It's through these small actions that we make the biggest changes. To parents, there's nothing more joyful than hearing your newborn's first cry. But what if those cries were of unimaginable pain and suffering from a 1-day-old newborn forced to inject morphine? The truth is, this is a life constrained forever. These are thousands of millions of lives affected, harmed, and damaged forever. Instead of leaving these infants helpless and vulnerable, let's start restoring and changing lives. With small changes, we can make a big impact. We could change Emma's life. We could change a newborn's life. Together, we could change millions of lives, starting with you.
Hello, welcome. Let me tell you a story. Yihan Lin is an author in Taiwan. She talked about her experience with mental illness. When she was in university, she had mental illness. Approaching a final exam, she showed her medical report to her professor. But her professor believed that the report was not authentic. Yihan Lin got so upset and so angry when she knew that. She thought, why would I pretend to be a mental health patient just to get away from an exam? How would you judge me to decide if I have mental illness? By how I look? By my makeup? Or by my back? Would you ever judge a cancer patient based on these criteria? Mental illness deserves more attention. As individuals, we should pay more attention to mental health. And as part of the society, we need to give more respect to the rules and laws regarding mental health. You might have heard about this. Mona is a nursing student in Kelowna, BC. She launched a lawsuit against an RCMP officer for an assault during a wellness check. According to the surveillance video, Mona was only dressed in a bra and leggings when she was dragged down facing down the hallway of the building. It literally looks like as if the officer is arresting a dangerous robber instead of a fragile patient. Since April, at least 4 people in Canada have died at the hand of police during wellness check. Those fatalities include Ajas Chaudhry, Chantel Moore, and Ajas. As one of the lucky ones who did not suffer from life threats, Mona said she was unable to stand when the police demanded her to get up. She said the police had kicked her at the back when she cannot get up. And the police claimed that Mona was holding a box cutter knife with the blade extended when she entered the house. And she had bleeding lacerations on her chest and upper arm. Wellness check is something noteworthy. In Canada, around 10,000 calls are made each month. For such an important issue, we need to change the procedural law regard to mental health. It needs to be more friendly to help seekers.
How do we even judge ourselves to decide if we have mental problems? Many people's answer will be to search it up on Google. According to Google, you are probably on the edge of dying. Are we taking our health seriously? Now you might want to argue that mental health is nothing serious. It's just a trick played by your emotions. People in the past generations did not care about these issues at all. Are those patients just someone who's too sensitive and too fragile? If you hold this type of thoughts, pay attention to these facts. All mental disorders are biological diseases. It's just the organ of interest is your brain instead of your heart or your pancreas. This is a statement made by Eric Kandel, a Nobel Prize winner. Similar to all other diseases, different mental health issues are linked to different malfunctions of different components of the brain. For example, autism is linked to abnormal brain growth and underconnectivity among brain regions. Another instance, depression is linked to Brodmann area 25. It is a junction box that interacts with other components of the brain involved in emotion, mood, and thinking. Now there's a special day that we celebrate mental health. That happens on October the 10th every year. Do you know what day is it? It's the World Mental Health Day. On that day, we give special effort to mental health patients, and we recognize the issue of mental health. But our effort should never be restrained to that day only. Every day can be a mental health day. We should all do something to celebrate that. For example, I have a friend who had mental health issues. She is actually one of my best friends. One day, she texted me, "Holly, I'm not feeling well. I'm standing on top of the building, and I really want to jump off from there. But I don't want to disappoint my parents." I was so shocked when I saw that. We have been friends for more than 10 years. And she didn't tell me about her mental health problems at all. It's just so sudden. So I text her immediately. "Everything's gonna be alright. Do not jump off from there. Let's come down from the building and have a chat." So she did. She came off from the building. I immediately referenced her to one of my psychiatrist friends. And now, she's getting treatment, and she's getting better. Actually, I just texted her yesterday, and she told me she had exceeded on her college admission exam, and life seemed to be so hopeful for her now. You see, your effort does make a change. If you have friends who have mental health problems, reference them to a psychiatrist you know. But imagine I didn't do that at all. What could possibly happen? Well, she might not choose to jump off from the building on that time. But what about the next time she stands on top of the building and the time after that? Would you ever regret if you lose your best friend just because you ignored their signal for help? If you have friends who have mental problems, be sure to help them. Or it might be you. It might be you who is not feeling well. It might be you who cannot go to sleep at night. It might be you who are cutting yourself just to get a little bit better. If that's you, please Please write this number down. It's the number for National Suicide Support. It's 833-456-4566. I'm going to repeat it again. It's 833-456-4566. Call this number. It can save your life. If you have mental health problems, please take care of yourself. If you have friends who have mental health problems, reference them to psychiatrists. If you have students, or if you have kids, instruct them about the problems of mental health. Remember, mental health patients, we all care about you. Remember, mental health issue can be restrained. Remember, mental health deserves more attention. Thank you.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Tang Cherlin. Today, I'm going to give a speech on the topic of small change, big impact. Before I begin, I would like to ask you a few questions. First, as a child, have you only lived with your grandparents? Second, have you ever lived without your parents for more than a month? Have you taken care of your younger siblings while you were still at school? If you have none of this experience I mentioned above, you are really fortunate, compared to a group of children that I'm going to talk about. This group of children have a common name called left behind children, by definition, whose parents are working in the city and they were left in their rural home. The whole story could be traced back to my childhood. When I was a kid, my parents told me to appreciate the life I have, to appreciate anything I took for granted, also to appreciate the environment around me. They also encouraged me that my small action can make a big impact on other people. When I went to school, a keynote speaker on the first day of class gave us a story. He said there were still thousands of children who had to walk miles to their school, and the keynote speech aiming to teach all the students like me to cherish the life we have and also encourage us to think of a way to help them. That small seed grew in my heart when I was young, and I wondered when I can do something for these kids. I finally got a chance in the summer of 2019. My friends and I volunteered to teach at Yuanbao Primary School in Dafang County, Guizhou Province, China. This school is at a rural area, also a mountain area. From the county's downtown to the school, I had to take a van, shaking for nearly an hour. And the mountain road was really bumpy. The cliffs were just centimeters away from the van. When I got there, although I had expectation to having a really bad environment, but still I was shocked. I was shocked that I didn't have clean water. I was shocked that I didn't have a bedroom to sleep. In fact, I had to jumble in a really small classroom of 20 people on a bed of temporary wooden pieces. The first night, I could hardly sleep. Anytime when I turned over, the bed made really noisy sound, and the wind continuously stamped on the door. When I got really tired, a few dogs barked, and they woke me up. I checked my time, it was 7 already. In my first class, I met my students. I asked my students to introduce themselves, but they were really shy. They didn't tell me a single word. So, I encouraged them to speak by promising them gifts, but still, it was deadly silent. That was not only the case. When I was doing my eye contact with my students, they avoided it. My intuition told me that they were not confident. In the English class, the English teacher asked all students to read from A to Z, which is really basic, and it was the curriculum setting for most Chinese students. However, these students could not do it. They could even hardly pronounce A, B, and C. I was really shocked, but I could not do anything. Luckily, during a break, I talked to a young girl, and she shared a piece of writing that she wrote in the class. She said, "I'm really jealous of the life in the city, as you guys don't have to work, but we do. We had to grow vegetables, we had to grow fruit, we have to feed chickens, and we have to take care of anything." I asked why you think of that way. The young girl told me her parents all work in the city, and she was the oldest sister in her home. She had to take care of her younger siblings. That was kind of sad, but also encouraged my determination to help them. Also, I had a conversation with Mr. Xi Zhaowei, who had volunteered to teach at Yuanbao Primary School for more than 7 years. I asked him how she felt about the school. He said, his school and thousands of other schools in the rural area struggle with good teachers. Teachers either want to leave the school for a better environment or just work without enthusiasm. Therefore, students could hardly learn anything. Also, most children in the school are left behind children whose parents are away working in the city. Many children lack parental love and care. They hardly see their parents. And also, they had to do many housework. Therefore, they cannot concentrate on schoolworks. He also mentioned the youngest kid who could have this type of life could only be 10 years old. The interview made me really uneasy, but it also strengthened my determination to help all the students there and all the children has this situation. As I knew, all the kids there were eager to know the world outside of the mountain. I knew all these kids were shy, but once they got enough encouragement, they could be outgoing. I also knew what they need was a compliment. They were no different than us. They need somebody to express love to them. In fact, I realized our small action could actually make a big impact on the children. So from there, I want to ask you, would you like to make a little bit more attention on them? Would you like to help them? Would you like to make their life a better one? Thank you for listening to my story. I believe my action and the small change of the society to care more about left behind children can finally make a big difference to make our world a better place. Thank you.
Canada changes course, read Time magazine in 1984. The Progressive Conservative Party had just won a landslide victory that has been unrivaled by any Canadian political party since. The party captured over 50% of the vote countrywide and won 211 seats in Parliament, nearly 80% of the total amount of seats at the time. But by 1993, the party's support had collapsed to a mere 2 seats. And by the early 2000s, a limping Progressive Conservative Party was forced to merge with the larger party, Alliance. This coalition of conservatives was now run by Western-based reformists, also known as social conservatives. Perhaps it was not a coincidence that the word progressive was dropped from the party name. This merger of the political right is where I feel the current Conservative Party of Canada lost touch with Canada's younger generation. From then on, simply did not speak to Gen X, Y, or Z. Hello, my name is Luke Montalbano, and I'm here today to speak about the Conservative Party of Canada, why it lost the recent election, and how it must change in the future, thus ensuring a robust democracy in Canada. But before that, we must analyze the Conservative Party of the past, the Progressive Conservative Party. What was it that the former Progressive Conservative Party had that the current Conservative Party does not? Appeal. It had a broad appeal to millions due to its progressive social policy and sustainable economic policy. Under Brian Mulroney, the Progressive Conservative Party won a landslide victory and proceeded to, once again, make Canada important on the global stage, with no better example than being a leading and often lone voice in the fight against apartheid in South Africa. The party pushed for workable environmental policies and spearheaded the effort to end acid rain across North America. In fact, the 1984 Progressive Conservative government was one of the first ruling parties to recognize the need for a Minister of the Environment. This progressive policy platform, which spoke to all Canadians, young and old, helped them win a second term in 1988. The social policy that the Progressive Conservatives drew up was one centered around Canadian core values. It put progress at the center of its platform and ensured that Canada's youth were well supported, listened to, and heard. I am a Gen Z, and as a Gen Z, I've grown up in a nation with increasingly progressive values and have witnessed some of the most important leaps in social evolution in recent history, such as gay marriage, assisted death, and the emergence of social networks. Our social values have been shaped by change, and no doubt they will continue to evolve in the coming years. Generation Z has had the unique opportunity to witness governments from the Harper Conservatives to the Trudeau Liberals, which has opened our eyes to how different parties strive to form and manage government. And I have come to the conclusion that today's Conservative Party is neither what it used to be, nor what it should be if it continues on its current course. In recent elections, the Liberal Party successfully attracted younger voters on their campaign platform to choose forwards. This in contrast to a Conservative Party that continues to choose backwards. Mr. Trudeau made sure to represent himself as the ideal progressive candidate, in which he was successful. Former Conservative Party leader Andrew Scheer, on the other hand, campaigned as a social conservative, refusing to take part in pride parades and being silent on issues such as abortion. This struck my generation as odd for our times. Along with that, he reverted to the old ways of the Reform Party, in which he was seemingly only fighting for the West, while not putting as much effort into other provinces that were equally important and pivotal for becoming Prime Minister, such as Ontario and Quebec. Moreover, Mr. Scheer attempted to emulate US Republican-style social policy, and, as we saw in the 2019 federal election, his strategy clearly failed and led him to lose an election that was almost certainly his for the taking. It was a shocking defeat, to be sure, but at the same time, strangely, was not surprising. This week's leadership election for the Conservative Party has once again displayed the myopic views of their voter base, specifically their refusal to evolve. Peter MacKay, a progressive conservative, had the ability to take the party in a more populist and progressive direction. He was the candidate who was going to be there to change things. He fought for workable environmental policies and was not silent on major issues such as abortion and LGBT rights. He was the change that the Conservative Party so desperately needed. But many Conservative members failed to realize the necessity of evolution if they wished to once again form government. The party overwhelmingly voted in Erin O'Toole, arguably the second coming of Andrew Scheer. The party's membership remains glued to social values of the past, not of the present and not of the future. Evolution is necessary for survival. The party must no longer cater to a small but vocal group of reformists who do not hold the best interests of all Canadians to heart. The Conservative Party must change its membership and policies so that they may better reflect today's Canada, not yesterday's Canada, if they wish to win the next federal election. If the Conservative Party wishes to win a majority in Parliament, they must resonate with all Canadians, as they did in 1984. Being tone-deaf to social evolution will ensure they remain a fringe party worthy of the same status as the federal NDP. Canada needs a strong and relevant Conservative Party if it wishes to preserve a vibrant democracy, where credible alternatives exist against an underperforming ruling party. The Conservative Party has historically served Canadians well, but today it is a shadow and shell of its former self, and our democracy has suffered because of that. If it ever wishes to contend for majority again, it must speak to women, to our immigrants, to our Indigenous, to our LGBTQ, and to the youth. The party must speak and listen to Generation X, Y, and Z. As if they don't, they will be doomed to repeat the mistakes of the past. My name is Luke Montalbano. Thank you for listening to my views on today's Conservative Party. Thank you.
French poet André Malraux once said, "You are not what you perceive yourself to be. You are what you hide." Nevermore has this quote probably been more important than today, in a world where people seem to be able to believe anything from the concept of vaccines causing autism to the existence of an alien cabal pulling the strings behind the American government. Indeed, through a series of very small little changes, our world has become one of the most gullible and vulnerable in generations to fake news and deceit. Good afternoon. My name is Max, and today I'll be breaking down how, in a series of small changes, the structure in how we process the truth in our world has been flipped on its head. I'm going to start by defining when these changes happened, their driving factors, and how we can combat this very clear lack of truth in our naive little world. First, let's look at this timeline. Falsehoods and fake news have been around since we could read, write, and talk. In 1789, a devious gang of tricksters managed to deceive the entirety of London into believing that a great flood was enveloping the United Kingdom from the east. The resulting panic caused mass hysteria in the city as thousands scrambled for shelter, ships, and safety. Consider this a piece of antique fake news. Lies such as this have never actually killed anyone. Perhaps they've caused some minor panic, they've inconvenienced a few, but they never killed anyone. But compared to all of today's great, big, whopping, impressively huge, gigantic lies, these mistruths, they seem like kiddie stuff. The rise in the press dropping lies to our public has been due to two reasons. The first one is bad people in power spreading misinformation and lies. This is nothing really new, as ever since the days of Caesar, politicians have bended the truth to benefit themselves. However, politicians warping facts have become bolder and bolder over the years. For example, US President Donald Trump has hailed hydroxychloroquine as a miracle cure for COVID-19, which it is not. Instead, it is actually almost only used to treat long-term conditions such as arthritis and lupus. President Trump has also pushed for Americans to inject bleach. That's right, you heard me right. Bleach into their veins to cure themselves of COVID. Both claims are illogical and can clearly put lives in danger. Another good example of individuals who always spread the media untruths are many major media outlets. These people, the same ones who bring in your sports and your weather, have a very uneasy habit of fibbing on certain facts. While it can be hard to recognize exactly the good in a viewpoint that you disagree with, it can be all the more difficult when the media twists both ends of the story. For example, when the Washington Post printed a story detailing the graphic assault of a pair of black students at Brown University, the outcry was heard nationwide as Brown vehemently denied any of the charges. It was only after a petition to boycott Brown University was dropped that the Washington Post finally admitted that the writer who'd written the story had fabricated the entire thing. When the individual who's been tasked with delivering the truth instead lies, all of those who deliver that same truth, their integrity is brought into question. These two driving factors, illogical rhetoric from individuals in power and irresponsible journalism, have led to a world more and more complacent into listening to what is quite obviously garbage. Illogical rhetoric which stirs panicked masses into leaping conclusions, and irresponsible journalists who fan the flames of confusion by not acting quickly enough to break the truth. The costs of this include political cost, as easily swayed elected officials fall for fake news. There's also an economic cost, as other countries are negatively affected by that same swayed elected official. And most dangerously, there is a physical cost. Look no further than the thousands of hydroxychloroquine bottles missing from store shelves, bought by people who do not need it, depriving those who actually do of a necessary medication. Fake news has a very real cost. Finally, how to combat it? Well, it's incredibly simple. Fact check and use your common sense. For example, if someone tells you that Black Lives Matter is burning down your church, perhaps look at some other sources to find either corroborating or different evidence. And if someone tells you on your television that aliens from Greenland have infiltrated your government, I'm going to leave that one to you. So what do we see tonight? We saw the rise through small changes of fake news in our modern day world. We saw the impacts, and we saw the main driving factors in this fake news. Tonight, I showed you how to safely define what's real and what's not. I'd like to leave you with a quote by Neil Gaiman. He says, "Any man who says what a cat told him gets what he deserves." Thank you very much.
Have you ever had a writer's block? That moment where your best ideas, your best thoughts are gone. Just like that. Now imagine you're in front of a stage of 20 to 100 people. But when you open your mouth to speak, you forget what you're going to say next. This fear of public speaking, of worrying of what you're going to say next, what you're going to do, keeping this mask of confidence and composure is the reason why so many people fear public speaking. I am in there included. But I'm here to tell you that public speaking is the only way for me to truly show all my emotions, all my thoughts, my story. So, dear audience, am I here just today to rant to you about my every little thought, my every really little feeling? Well, being honest with you, I'm not very sure myself. In fact, a lot of these days I just feel lost and conflicted. I can feel like the world is spinning at 100 miles per hour, or feel as if I'm ready to collapse and just sleep. But there's a reason why I was chosen today to share my speech, a reason why I was given the chance to share my story. So let me take you back to the very beginning of how I first found public speaking. It all started with this book my dad had, called The Book of Amazing Stories. In this book, it highlights famous celebrities and the conflicts they had overcame. In this book, the one celebrity that stood out to me was Jerry Steinfeld. Jerry Steinfeld is a very well-known comedian, best known for his sitcom Steinfeld. But this book does not go in and talk about the glories of Jerry Steinfeld today. No, it goes and it highlights a younger Jerry, so in first standing up and starting in comedy. This Jerry was very nervous, unable to even crack out his first joke in his first stand-up. But this didn't stop him. No. In fact, what Jerry did is that after that event, he kept on improving himself. He kept on trying harder and harder until he could reach the place he is now today. When I read this story, I felt inspired. I thought I could be like Jerry. I could be like him. All I needed to do was just to practice so I could be like him. But I was never so wrong. Turns out you actually need to have the experience to public speak, and I wasn't a fast enough learner. I really couldn't do it. So when it came to the actual presentation in grade 4, even with me practicing through my cue cards, working really hard, when I walked up to the stage, suddenly this weird sensation ran through my body. I felt my legs turn to jelly, my arms shake, and suddenly my classmates' eyes bore into my skin. I felt uncomfortable, and for the first time, I felt afraid. As I remember opening up my speech, I kept on bumbling and fumbling through my cue cards. My eyes darted all over the place, and my legs shook. My voice cracked like a broken speaker, and when I got home, I felt so ashamed of myself. I was furious. Furious I could believe I could change just like that. Furious I believed I could be like Jerry. Furious that I was humiliated in front of everyone. So I made a promise to myself, never to let myself be humiliated like that again. Never to let myself be hurt just like that. So I kept on practicing. Instead of practicing with cue cards, I decided to practice without my notes. Instead of practicing in front of my family, I'd practice in front of the mirror, practicing on my hand gestures. In the last couple of years, I was able to find a confident and cool stance that I could use, something to help me calm my nerves between every presentation. And I felt like, again, I was close to Jerry. Again, I could be a model presenter, an unstoppable speaker. But again, I was wrong. In grade 6 is when it all happened. In grade 6, I had this amazing class called PSL. PSL is basically drama. In PSL, I was able to act, I was able to write, and I was able to direct scripts. I felt exactly like Jerry. Jerry had his Steinfeld, I had my PSL. But the fun all ended when there was this presentation. It all started with this parody film on Cinderella. My group had to draw the sticks, and my friend Justin drew the short one, the role of the prince. Everything went downward from there. Me wanting to be the perfect director, I pushed Justin to try his hardest. I pushed him to what my idea of perfection was. But the honest truth was, Justin was uncomfortable. He wasn't ready to take on this role, and I guess I should have noticed. But I was too intoxicated with my own idea of being a good director, of perfection, that I only focused on me, not on the rest of the group. And I paid the consequences when the day of the presentation. I remember walking in. and my eyes growing wide as I saw Justin rush out of the room in tears. That night, again, I went to my bedroom thinking, what did I do wrong this time? And then that's when I realized it. I will never reach that perfection and that level of experience Jerry has. He has gone through thousands of states, thousands of years to get to the place where he is today. I am a person who's still learning and who still needs development. And I realized while Jerry is ready for the solo act, I need a group act. People to tell me what I'm doing wrong and to help me improve. So the next day, I reflected and I apologized to Justin. So where have I been for the last 2 years? Well, for the last 2 years, I've been a part of Gavel Club. Gavel Club has let me improve myself even more through small table topics and through debates. I'm able to go converse myself and be more open around these people. But I'm not here to talk to you about Gavel Club, no. I'm here to remind you that although we may not be Jerry Steinfields, born for the showbiz, ready to go present ourselves, we can always find a place of comfort within ourselves. All it takes is these little impacts, these little steps to push us where they are. For me, these little impacts came through a book, a presentation, and a friend. And although they were all so different, they taught me perseverance, improvement, group work, and leadership. To me, if life were to boil down to one thing, it would be movement. To move is to keep on improving. Jerry Steinfield.
Let's be honest, we would all love spending all day in front of our computer screens, playing video games and watching Netflix while munching on fast food. At first, we may not notice any harmful effects or changes to our bodies, but over time of continuously doing these things, we can notice small changes like increasing body fat, heart problems, fatigue, and much more. A lot of people start giving up hope and continuing a healthy lifestyle after noticing these problems, and that leads them to spending more time in front of their computer screens and binge eating. Not only can that lead to physical health problems, but it can also lead to mental health problems, including depression and anxiety, which can later on lead to much worse things. But there is a solution, and there are many different ways you can turn your life around. And today, I will explain how you can do it and why sitting in front of your computer all day and eating too much fast food does a lot more harm to your body than you can imagine. There are two key components. One is physical health and other is mental health. Physical health consists of your organs and your physical features. That includes your skin, liver, heart, stomach, and many more. In order to maintain a good physical healthy lifestyle, you need to exercise and diet. Those are the two key points. Exercise is important because it helps you maintain a good body weight, stay in shape, prevents you from getting serious diseases, and also it keeps your blood moving and pumping well. Another big thing is that it keeps you mentally prepared and mentally well, and it keeps you positive and prevents you from getting mental issues, which I'll talk about later on. The World Health Organization recommends people under 18 getting at least 60 minutes of exercise a day, and people over 18 at least 150 minutes of exercise a day. But this isn't easy for a lot of people. According to the Stanford Med School, at least a quarter of the American population don't follow these guidelines and don't get enough exercise time. And out of this percentage, the average time spent in front of the computer screens are 11 hours. 11 hours. That is almost the amount of time we spend awake a day. But there is a solution, like I mentioned in the beginning. Now, before I start, I just want to say I know how hard it is to control yourself and to leave your computer and go out for a walk or a run or just get some physical exercise in. It's easier said than done. I struggled a lot in the beginning too. I used to spend all day in front of my computer screen and do nothing else. I didn't want to do anything else because all I had was the computer in front of me. But I started to realize that I was doing something wrong and that I need to turn my life around after learning about the harmful effects of not exercising at school. So I told myself, if you're going to stay like this forever, there's going to be a lot of health issues coming your way and there's going to be a lot of problems. So I turned down my computer, stopped the ad, stopped everything, and I just went out for a walk. 10 minutes, that's it, 10 minutes. And you know, guess what? I felt refreshed, I felt really nice, my heart was pumping more than it has all day, and I felt really positive and better than I have. So from this, we can understand that just these small changes can have a bigger impact than you can imagine. I slowly started to eventually gain a habit of not only spending 10 minutes outside and not only walking, but spending more time outside, and not only walking, but running, exercising, playing basketball, doing all kinds of physical activities, just spending time away from the computer screens and away from all the electronic devices. I felt really motivated in life after exercising every day, and not only did I stay fit and stay really healthy and really positive, I just felt really good about myself, and I just really felt really good about life. So from this, we can get that, and just stop spending too much time in front of your computer screens. If you want to watch that ad, don't watch it. If you want to watch that extra episode, don't watch it. Use that time to go out to get some physical exercise in. Your blood will be pumping really hard, and you'll be refreshed more than you have all day. And slowly from that 10 minutes, you can turn that 10 minutes into 20, 20 into 30, 30 into 40, and eventually you'll have an hour and you'll meet the requirements. As long as you're staying active, there's always going to be a benefit. Now the next component, and is also very important, is diet. Now I'm not a nutritionist or anything even close to that, but I definitely know the benefits of healthy eating and the good impacts it does to you. What a lot of people, including me, thought in the beginning was that as long as you exercise, you don't need to watch your diet and you don't need to do anything, you don't need to focus on your eating at all. Well, as you can guess, I was completely wrong. First off, if you want to maintain a good, healthy body weight, you have to balance the amount of calories you consume and the amount of calories you burn. Second off, too much junk food can lead to serious diseases like diabetes, heart problems, obesity, and much more. Last off, unhealthy eating is the leading cause of obesity in the United States. Now, I'm not telling you to never eat junk food again, because it's easier said than done, and it's really hard. Just that sensation of biting into that double chocolate donut or the juiciness of the burger, it's hard and it's addicting. But it's just that small sacrifice you're going to have to make to turn your life around and watch your diet. According to the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, 33.8% of the U.S. adults are either overweight or obese, and about 6% of adolescents aged 2 to 19 are overweight or obese. That added together is almost half the population in America. Half the population. That is a lot of people, and that is definitely an issue, and definitely not a good thing to do. But like I said before, and like I'll always say, there definitely is a way to turn that around, and that definitely is a way to change that. One step at a time, one small change, one small step can have a bigger impact than you can imagine. Next time you go to McDonald's or go to Wendy's or any fast food restaurant, instead of ordering a full meal, maybe add something to the side or remove something from your order. Like I said, it's easier said than done. I had a hard time controlling my mouth too. In the beginning, or throughout my childhood, throughout my middle school years, I was really addicted to eating. And honestly, it was like a drug to me. Every time I passed by a fast food restaurant, or every time I came across an ad on Instagram or something about food, I just wanted to eat. That was all I wanted to do. And it's really hard to stop eating, but that was just my problem. And that was a lot of people's problem. So I told myself, if you want to watch your diet and you want to keep a good, healthy lifestyle, you're going to have to watch your diet. And in order to do that, you can't be eating as much as you do, and you have to watch your diet. So I did it the hard way. I deleted all the food delivery apps off my phone, and I had to tell myself every time I passed by a fast food restaurant that you can't go here. You have to watch your diet. And most of the time after that, it actually worked for me. But as you can guess, it wouldn't work all the time. So after I learned more and more about these harmful effects, I told myself, it's time to 100% stop, and 100% just stop doing everything, stop eating so much junk food, and 100% watch your diet. Because if that's what it takes to look good, if that's what it takes to be healthy, I'll take it. Since that day, the only time I really went to a restaurant or really ate any junk food was if there was absolutely no choice, or I just didn't go at all. Along with exercise, I was losing weight and I was really feeling motivated. And it's just, if I felt much better. And trust me, I know how hard it is to seal up that shit bag, throw away the drink, dump everything in the drain. But that's just the commitment you're going to have to make to maintain a good, healthy lifestyle. A healthy lifestyle is really important, and diet is a huge part of it, so it may be a good consideration for a change in life. Now, those are the two major components to a good, healthy physical lifestyle, and how a small change can have a bigger impact than you can imagine. Now, the next major component to complete a healthy physical lifestyle is mental health. Now, mental health is completely different from physical health. It consists of a positive mindset and keeping positive about life and just not being unhappy or having any serious mental issues like depression, anxiety, eating disorders, PTSD, and all of that. For a lot of people, mental health can be a huge struggle in life, and everyone at some point in their life goes through a phase of depression or anxiety, but this affects a lot of people, and this can be a huge problem that is really hard to overcome. And I'm not going to go too deep into mental health today because that is a whole other topic and is very complicated and a lot. But I will explain why sitting in front of a computer screen all day can lead to a lot of serious mental disorders and mental health issues. According to the Columbia University, spending too much time in front of your computer isolates yourself from the real world. And when you do that too often, that is definitely not a good thing. I was feeling really down and nothing really motivated me when I was spending all day in front of my computer screens. That was all I was doing for my entire middle school years and the beginning of my high school years. I felt really unmotivated to do anything else other than watch my videos or play video games, watch movies, and anything else. And that definitely wasn't good. I was feeling really down whenever I was away from the computer, and I was really feeling sad, depressed, and I had a lot of anxiety in life and wasn't feeling right. But all I could do when I was outside and not beside my computer was that when I go home, I'm just going to spend all day on it. And that's all I was thinking about. And that's definitely not a good thing. After I came across an ad on YouTube discussing the effects of spending too much time in front of my computer, that gave me a wake-up call. So what I did to help myself was that I made a list and I wrote a journal. I wrote a list first off to manage my time in front of my computer and manage my time when I'm away from my computer, and just it helps me because I can have an organized schedule in front of my computer. Trust me, it's a lot harder than you think it is, but as I said before, and like I'll always say, that's just a commitment you have to make. I also wrote a journal because it helped me keep track of myself and keep track of how much time I was spending in front of my computer screen and how I was doing every day. And honestly, it helped me a lot because I was feeling more motivated to do other things when I was away from my computer after using these solutions. Another way for me was to just completely stay away from my computer because that is just what it's going to take to keep a healthy mental health. Just these little things can have a huge impact and have a bigger impact than you can imagine. Obviously, mental health goes way deeper beyond what I'm talking about right now, but I was just explaining how spending too much time in front of your computer screens can have a huge impact on your mental health. So, like I said, keep a list of how long you're spending in front of your computer and how long you're spending outside of your computer so you can keep track, and write a journal so you can give yourself feedback every day. Another good way, if you're feeling ever down or depressed, is to talk to a friend or a trusted adult or a counselor. I just explained to you the side effects of spending too much time in front of your computer screens and eating too much junk food. It's hard to think those little stupid machines or that one bite off a burger can have such a huge impact and such harmful impacts, but there are many different solutions, and I hope I helped you out today, or at least gave you some motivation to turn your life around if you're struggling with these things I explained today. Trust me, you can do it if you want to turn your life around. And it's just, you have to do whatever it takes to do it, and trust me, you will do it. I hope everything I said today gave you a little bit of motivation, and thank you for listening.
everyone, this is Katrina Chen. 我是 Katrina Chen， 卑诗省负责儿童照护的省务厅长跟 Burnaby Lohi 的省议员。今天非常高兴能够在此庆祝我们加拿大的青少年国际演讲比赛顺利成功，同时也要感谢我们所有的主办单位跟参赛者，有你们辛苦的努力，我们卑诗省才能够有这么多元文化跟丰富的一个社会。Thank you so much for all of your contributions, and I would like to bring greetings on behalf of our provincial government, our Premier John Horgan, to wish you a very successful contest. 也祝福大家在这个疫情的当中呢，能够多保持健康平安。Thank you and see you later.
本节目由艺空联盟拍卖平台独家赞助播出。下载 YKLM Auction App， 浏览更多有趣好玩的视频内容，更有机会赢得更多高端竞拍商家折扣。艺空联盟让拍卖成就美好生活。